Hey there. So I wanted to talk about the little sleepy town of Raymore, Missouri. This is where I grew up past the age of 3 until I left the house and eventually went into the United States Army. In Raymore, like a lot of small towns in America, at the time, I think when we first moved there, only had a couple thousand people to it, and it since has exploded in size, and multiple elementary schools and middle schools and such, and it just wasn't that in the late 60s, early 70s. And of my time there, it was kind of it was boring, so I spent a lot of time doing creative things with art specifically. And that was kind of what I was known for when I was in grade school through high school. It was always a great artist. My love wasn't just art, though. It was music, but it was as normal a childhood as you can expect when you grow up with a domineering and tyrannical and abusive parent in the form of my mother. And those stories can always take place another day, but it was just a weird, she's really overprotective. I never had keys to the house until I was in my 30s. I was never allowed to, spend the night over at other people's house and stuff. It was just a really strange, but it's just how my mom was. And the fact of the matter is, I only remember a couple of things occurring while I was in Raymore. The first happened when I was really young, and I want to say it was probably first grade, maybe second grade. And this also involved my childhood best friend, Gerard Spills. Gerard and I used to spend a majority of our time playing in a lot that was 2 houses, basically just to the north of my parents' house in Raymore was the Guilford's house, and across the street on, I think that's Elm, was this big lot of willow trees. And there was a little creek that would run in the back of our yard that would also run through that property, and every time it rained heavily, that whole thing would flood. And it was such a magical little place for us to play at. These were by far the biggest willow trees I've ever seen in my life. I have no idea how old these trees were when they were eventually cut down and the stumps grinded out, and they put a house there, I believe. But before that happened, these were the size of some oak trees. They were by far the tallest trees in that area. They were bigger than a lot of oak trees, except for the cottonwoods that were in the area. I think that those might have been a little bit taller, but they were gigantic willow trees. And of course, we as kids loved them because we would gather all the vines together and swing like Tarzan through, jump out of the tree. And we built, used wood and nails to build little ladders going up the tree. And it was just so much fun. And I enjoyed that portion of my childhood so much. But there was one time when it was just past dusk, and we should have been getting home anyway. And I had forgotten about this until Gerard brought it up one year when, after I moved back from the Army, and we were talking. He brought this up one time, and I was like, and I had completely forgotten about it, and he reminded me of this. So apparently, we were playing, and we both saw a luminous figure, humanoid figure, in the top of the willow trees that was jumping around, kind of leaping from branch to branch. And as it was leaping from branch to branch and tree to tree, it seemed to be getting closer to us. So of course we ran screaming to back to our respective houses, and I told my dad. My dad grabbed the flashlight and went over to the willow trees, and of course there was nothing there at the time, but we both saw it. And when he jogged my memory, I all of a sudden had a rapid instant recall of this event, and it was never happened again. I think we were a little leery of being over there at after dark, but I mean that's how it was. I mean, there was no other thing that would prevent us from going over there because we love that area so much. And I was so disappointed to find out that those had been torn out and housing put up, but progress. Do with whoever owned the lot could do whatever they wanted with it, but it was such a neat spot to grow up with. And that's that's a minor story, and I have no clue what it was. I can tell you what it wasn't. It wasn't the moon. It wasn't anything like that. This was humanoid shaped and luminous.
All right, now for the bigger story. So this occurred my senior year in high school, which was 1983. And before I tell you the details of the Spills fire, the fire that luckily was caught before it burned down their house, before I get to the actual events of that fire and what happened afterwards, I want to tell you about the stuff that led up to it. So, as I mentioned, my Catholic nun aunt, my Aunt Mary, she had given me this pretty high-powered art lamp, and it was a desk lamp, but it had high-powered. I don't think it was. I mean, it was pre-halogen, so I don't know what the wattage of this bulb was that was in it, but it was a high-powered, pretty powerful lamp that I would use to draw with, because I could draw. I would use it even during the day because you get such great light on paper that it just would allow you to do a lot of subtleties, especially at the time I was doing a lot of stuff with pencil. And I had taken this lamp over to Gerard's house, and it was what started the fire, according to the fire department. And it seemed pretty obvious that this is the case. To that point, it's important for me to tell you that piece because there's a religious tie from the outset, in that my nun aunt gave me the cause of this fire. So our senior year, which seems very peculiar for two high school guys to be doing this, but Gerard was always a deeply spiritual, deeply religious person, and I really respected that of him, and I think his family was very devout Catholics. So we decided that we wanted to find a church to go to, just to call home, something we could hang out at, something we could be in the band at. And so we started looking at all these different denominations in and around the Raymore, Belton, Grandview area. We tried them all: Methodist, Presbyterian, Catholicism, Baptist. And of all places, we ended up at this sleepy little church in sleepy ass Raymore, that was up by the cemetery. And I want to say it was an Assembly of God, but it might have been a Church of God. I just really don't remember. I know that in preparation to do this, I did look on Google Maps, down at the street level, and try to find this church so I could, do a screen grab and put it so you could see what I'm talking about. Unfortunately, I couldn't. Either that building, either they've added onto it or I didn't recognize it. But where I thought it was, it's not there now. But there's more housing developments in that area too. So they could have torn it down and put houses up. I really don't know. But it was up by the cemetery. So we joined this church and we start playing in the band. And of course, like all those type of small churches, most of the congregation was older. I mean, it was people in their 50s and 60s and 70s. And they really wanted to appeal to a younger demographic. So they asked Gerard and I to witness to our friends and try and get them to come and attend. And so we did just that. We did what they asked. And a couple of guys that we talked to were also musicians, and they happened to come to the church. But they also afterwards, I don't recall if it was that night or that weekend or something, but it was shortly thereafter, they broke into the church, stole all the music gear, got busted, and everything changed. It was painfully obvious. Nobody ever said, "Hey, you guys aren't welcome." But it was painfully obvious that the pastor's family were the main focus of the church, or the main people of the church, and the congregation were shunning us. I mean, they blamed us. I don't know if they believed we were involved with it, even after we explained that we did exactly what they asked us to. We witnessed to these guys and brought them here. But they just blamed us for this occurring. And so we stopped going, and it signaled a great turning away from organized religion. It left such a bad taste in my mouth that the behavior was so not Christian-like that it just ruined it for me. And if I'm 100% honest about it, I don't remember what transpired next after that. I know that we were using that lamp to read stuff, and I don't know. I just don't know. I don't think we were playing with Ouija boards or anything else like that. We might have been reading some pretty esoteric stuff. I don't remember. And to be honest with you, I don't want to remember that portion of it, because the rest of it's scary enough. It doesn't require me to solve that piece of this puzzle. So let's go back to the fire. So my mom picks up Gerard from school. And like I said, when I got there, fire department had already left. And Gerard was coming to stay with us. We had spare bedrooms, so he stayed in there. And Warren stayed with a friend of his. Charmaine stayed with a friend of hers, I believe. And then Elizabeth and Gerard's parents got a hotel room somewhere nearby while they were going to do the construction. But after they left, we went up into Gerard's room to see it. We just wanted to all see it, what was there. And you couldn't go really past the door. But I'm telling you, I wish we had more pictures. Maybe the spills have more pictures. I really don't know. But basically, the fire burned a perfect circle inside Gerard's bedroom. So if you can imagine, the walls and then a circle going almost, I would say maybe 1.5 to 2 feet from the exterior walls all the way around. And that fell straight into the basement. Well, that stuff in the basement caught fire. Betty was a renowned hoarder, and the basement was just filled with stuff from Swap and Shop and whatnot. So that stuff ignited, and luckily the fire department was able to put out the fire. Way to go, Raymore Fire Department, for putting out the fire before it enveloped the whole house. It was just Gerard's room and then portions of the basement that really impacted. But Gerard's room took the brunt of it. And like I said, it was a perfect circle. And let me think about this, in the southeast corner of the room, so there's a window there, and then in that corner, the window would look out over the driveway. But there in that corner of the room was a Bible. And despite all the soot and all the ash and everything else that was possibly, smoke, the ceiling, everything's black in there, I swear to you, that Bible was untouched. It looked like somebody just set it there. And we were we were in the house directly after this occurred. And that's not even the craziest thing. So in Gerard's closet, which is, see, that would be on the north wall in the corner, the northeast corner of his room. Gerard had all his clothes, and all his clothes were basically just little charred little fragments, little shards, hanging on the hangers. That's all that was left of his clothes, was just nothing but just these little black shards of clothing hanging from these hangers, except for a green scapular. Now, what is a green scapular? All you Catholics will know exactly what this is. For those of you who aren't, a green scapular is a little piece of green felt. And you know those scissors that go, kind of zigzaggy? It's cut with those. At least everyone I've seen is cut with those. And on one side of it, it has a picture of Mary, and the other side is a prayer, and it says, "Immaculate Heart of Mary, pray for me now and in the hour of my death." Oh, hold on one second. Actually, let me show you. I happened to carry one with me that was in my mom's house. When she passed away, I found it in a drawer, and I have no idea how she got it. But she kept it in her desk drawer. Let's see here. One side has a picture of Mary, and then on the back side has the prayer, "Immaculate Heart of Mary, pray for me now and in the hour of my death." So this is exactly how the green scapular was in Gerard's closet. It is a piece of felt with some other cloth on it, and it's suspended by thread. And yet, it did not burn. It did not burn and was hanging in that closet. So, of course, all of us are really freaked out by this odd occurrence where a Bible didn't burn and this religious icon doesn't burn. But that's not it. So there's also the smoke formed an image on the inside of Gerard's closet. Honestly, the photo I have of this that I'm going to show you here in a second doesn't do it any justice. I'm telling you, and any of the spills can also corroborate this, that when you would see it in person, when you see this image in person, if you looked at it, if you got close enough to it, you could see not only the cornea of the eyes, but the iris of the eyes and the pupils of the eyes. It was beyond freaky. And over the years, when I've shown this picture to people, they've said, well, there's a bunch of other faces in this photo. And I'm like, what? Say what? And they're right. You can turn the picture upside down and sideways and see all kinds of crazy stuff in it. And I encourage you to do this. But the picture that I have was taken with Gerard had one of those old Kodaks. They're about yay big and about this thick, and you can look through the viewfinder. It's got a film that you load in there, and you press it. It has a flash on it, but you press it and you advance it, and it's almost like one of the disposable ones. But that doesn't have very good resolution to it. I mean, it's a picture, but it's not very sharp. And here's the thing. Every single hard drive I've ever had this stupid picture on has mysteriously crashed. Right now, I keep it on an external drive because I don't want it on my main computer drive. It's on just a 3 terabyte external hard drive I have that I'll keep it on there. But I won't put it on any other computers because it's just too freaky how many times this thing, my out of the blue, new hard drives would just Bonk. And the crazy thing about his too is I've tried to do data recovery on him, and they can't get shit off him. It's bizarre. Well, anyway, so this image is on the wall in Gerard's room. When they're rebuilding Gerard's room, putting in new carpet, you know, tearing out the subfloor, putting new subfloor in, putting, you know, finishing all that, putting carpet in. The Spills asked him not to paint that over. It was that freaky. And I remember after the house was basically after they finished with the carpet and stuff like that, of us looking at that, we went over to the house and it was just Gerard and Warren and I, little Warren. So we're back in the room and we're looking at the image the smoke made on that wall. And I remember Warren asking me if I thought that was Jesus. That was a picture of Jesus. And the moment he asked me that question, I made eye contact, looking directly in the eyes of this image, and I suddenly became overwhelmed with anxiety and fear, and my eyes started watering, and I said, oh no, it's not Jesus. And to this day, I still get a little bit of fear involved when I tell that story. I can't help it because of how I felt at that time. Okay, so that brings me to post-fire. Obviously, we were all very freaked out by this. After Gerard, Warren, and I were looking at the image, and Warren asked that question, we went out to the living room, and we're standing by their mantle, by the fireplace, the mantle over the fireplace, and Gerard's dad shows up, checks out the carpet, and then leaves. And we walked around the house with him, but we went back because that was the one part of the house we were just going to hang out in until we decided what the hell we were going to do. And at the time in 1983, there just wasn't shit in Raymore. I mean, there wasn't. I mean, you'd have to drive up close to Belton to really, have anything. I think there was a donut shop where I don't even know what business is in there now, but there was a donut shop, right up on South Madison. I think I don't know if the Casey's was there yet. It might have been. I don't recall. I don't remember if the Casey's was there or not, but there wasn't really much of anything to do or go to. And so we're standing there by the mantle and trying to figure out what we're going to do. And out of nowhere, we all heard this. This is after George's dad left. We all heard the only lights. Let me back up for a second. The only lights that were on in the house were the ones that were directly on each side of the mantle. Only lights in the house. The kitchen lights were off, and there's nothing on downstairs, nothing in the hallway, nothing in Gerard's room. It was just those lights. And out of nowhere, we hear this click, and at the end, by the sound, you could tell it wasn't the light switch that was closest to us. It was the far one that clicks louder at the end of the hallway. And the light turns on in the hallway. And Gerard and Warren and I just kind of look at each other, and then we bolted out of the house. Turned off the light and bolted out of the house. Ran as fast as we could to get the heck out of the house. Because we were freaked out. Afterwards, later on, when I interviewed Elizabeth about this, she mentioned that, and I had forgotten about it or wasn't aware of it, one of the two, that she saw a man and a woman, full body apparitions walking into her mom and dad's bedroom. And I believe she volunteered to stay at the house while they were either had moved into the peculiar house, something like that. But it was after the fire. Gerard, I don't know if he ever slept in that room again. I know for a while he wouldn't sleep in there. I think he was sleeping downstairs or doing something, but he wouldn't sleep in that room. I wouldn't sleep in that room. And I was over there quite a bit. I would, basically, it was so weird. If even as a high schooler, when I was living there at my parents' place, if I wasn't in the house when they decided to go to bed, I better find someplace else to sleep. And so, which is really strange, but needless to say, I spent a lot of time spending the night over there at the Spills house. And, they were very much like brothers and sisters, and Betty and Warren were a second set of parents to me. And I love each one of them dearly. So we got out of there, and I would say probably a few months later, because it was before I moved out. It was a few months later, I was staying over there, and I was sleeping on the floor in the living room. Just grabbed a pillow or something like that and was sleeping there. And the Spills had a really cute tabby cat named Tiger. Tiger was a very friendly cat. She was very sweet cat. And I woke up to Tiger putting her claws into my chest, and she was staring at me, and her eyes were kind of aglow, but her face was this close to my face. And she hissed at me, and she'd never done anything like this prior to this. And she bit through my lip, punctured it in a couple of places, and then ran. And I realized that, cats can be, a little particular and moody, but this was just behavior that was so unlike any behavior seen by Tiger ever. And I remember that scaring me. And I think that was really the last thing, one of the last few times I spent the night over there. I would rather sleep in the car than sleep there. It was just unnerving. So that, my friends, is the story of Raymore, Missouri.